Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're embarking on a seriously fascinating journey. We are going to zoom all the way out to examine the absolute foundational definition of life itself. And then we're going to zoom all the way back in to look at the rich, real-world, frankly breathtaking biodiversity of Ethiopia. Whether you're a seasoned biologist student or just someone who's kind of curious about the natural world, this explainer is absolutely going to change the way you look at the living things around you.
All right, let's kick things off with a question that sounds super simple but is actually kind of tricky. A galloping horse moves, right? A car driving down the highway also moves, but obviously only one of them is actually alive. Why is that? I mean, we intuitively know that a car, or say a bowl of wiggling gelatin, isn't alive. But pinning down exactly why, that's sort of the ultimate biological puzzle. We can't just say, well, if it moves, it's alive. So, what exactly is the secret recipe for life? Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start with defining life, then move into the science of classification, look at the universal language of life, break down the 5 kingdoms, explore Ethiopia's incredible biodiversity, and finally, we'll talk about some local heroes of taxonomy.
Jumping right into section 1, defining life. What actually makes something alive? Well, the truth is, biologists literally cannot define life with just a single simple sentence. Instead, life is recognized by a really specific shared set of 7 characteristics. It's like a checklist. If a system checks all these boxes, it belongs to the living world. First up, all living things are composed of one or more cells. Those are the basic building blocks of life. Second, they require a source of energy. Plants do this by making their own food through photosynthesis, while animals, well, we consume others. Third, they respond to internal and external stimuli, so reacting to changes in their environment. Fourth, they grow in size and mass. Fifth, they reproduce to make more of their kind. Sixth, they excrete metabolic waste, like when your body breathes out carbon dioxide. And finally, number 7, they display ordered complexity, meaning the whole system, from the tiny molecules up to the entire body, is incredibly highly organized.
Moving on to section 2, the science of classification, making sense of the chaos.
Think about how you organize a really messy closet or your bookshelf. You probably group similar stuff together so you can actually find it later, right? Well, scientists have to do the exact same thing, but with literally millions of living organisms. And this brings us to a crucial definition: taxonomy. Taxonomy is the science of naming, identifying, and classifying organisms. Taxonomists group these organisms based on physical similarities, their internal structures, and even their deep evolutionary relationships. Now, this massive organizational effort really kicked into gear back in the 1700s, thanks to a Swedish botanist named Carolus Linnaeus. He is widely celebrated today as the father of modern taxonomy. Let's move to the next point and see how this builds. Linnaeus proposed a ranking system that scientists actually still use to categorize life today. Think of it exactly like a mailing address. Domain is the broadest category, kind of like the country. Then you narrow it down to kingdom, which is like the state. Then it goes phylum, class, order, family, all the way down to genus and species, which are essentially the specific street and house number of an organism. It's just a beautifully logical funnel that goes from broad, universal rules all the way down to highly specific individuals.
Which brings us to section 3, the universal language of life, binomial nomenclature.
So we live in a world with immense cultural and linguistic diversity. I mean, in Ethiopia alone, there are over 80 ethno-linguistic groups and thousands more across the globe. Now, using local common names for plants and animals is great for everyday life, for sure, but it causes massive confusion in the global scientific community. Take a single crop like maize. It's known as bekalo in Amharic, bokolo in Afon-Aroma, badella in Sidamo-Afo, and corn in English. Imagine a bunch of scientists trying to write a global research paper using all those different terms. Chaos, right? And this brilliantly illustrates why Linnaeus created a universal 2-part Latin naming system, what we call binomial nomenclature. Under the system, every single species gets a universal scientific name. The first part is the genus, which is capitalized, and the second is the species, in lowercase. So no matter where you are, maize is universally recognized as Zea mays, and the false banana, or Enset, is Inside ventricosum. It's literally a universal language that completely breaks down geographical and language barriers worldwide.
Okay, section 4, the 5 kingdoms, the ultimate filing system.
So originally, Linnaeus created a super simple 2-kingdom system. You had plants and you had animals. Done. But as microscopic technology got better, scientists started zooming in and realized, wait a minute, a lot of organisms simply don't fit into those 2 buckets.
They needed a better system to account for complex cell structures and how these organisms were actually getting their food. Enter Robert Whittaker. In 1969, he proposed this brilliant five-kingdom classification. First up is Monera, which includes bacteria and archaea. These guys are prokaryotic, meaning their cells don't even have a nucleus. Next, we get into the eukaryotic kingdoms, where the cells are much more complex. There's Protista, which are mostly these highly varied single-celled organisms. Then fungi, which are heterotrophs that absorb nutrients and actually have chitin in their cell walls. Then Plantae, the autotrophs that make their own food. And finally, Animalia, the multicellular heterotrophs, which includes vertebrates and invertebrates, basically you and me. Every single living thing on Earth fits neatly into one of these distinct filing cabinets.
Next up, Section 5, Ethiopia's incredible biodiversity, science in action.
You know, taxonomy isn't just some abstract concept found in dusty old textbooks. It's an active, real-world tool we use to understand our own backyards. And Ethiopia happens to offer one of the most remarkable backyards on the entire planet. Because of its totally unique geographical location, highly varied topography, and diverse climatic features, Ethiopia is an absolute biological hotspot. It holds this massive diversity of wild plant and animal species, and what's crazy is that many of them display high endemicity, which is just a fancy way of saying they are found absolutely nowhere else on Earth. Historically, this diverse ecology even acted as a gateway for the diversification of domestic animals as they moved from Asia into Africa.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how the science of taxonomy connects directly to your dinner plate. Ethiopia is a primary center of diversity for incredibly vital field crops. Native endemic crops like teff, scientifically named Aragistus teff, and nug, Guiziodia abyssinica, represent literally thousands of years of agricultural diversity. And honestly, identifying and classifying these crops is absolutely crucial. It ensures we can protect them, study them, and rely on them for future generations.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 6, Local Heroes of Taxonomy. So the crucial point here is that this incredible biodiversity doesn't just magically categorize itself. It requires the relentless, passionate, and highly skilled work of actual human beings getting out into the field to discover, identify, and catalog all these organisms. Behind every identified species is a dedicated scientist, and we really have to take a second to honor the distinguished Ethiopian taxonomists who have poured their entire lives into this field. We're talking about scientists like Professor Sebsebi Demiso, who directed the Flora of Ethiopia project and has published extensively on African vegetation. There's also Dr. Misvin Tadese, Professor Ensermu Kelbessa, and Professor Silas Nemomissa, all of whom have completely revolutionized our botanical understanding of the region. And over in the animal kingdom, zoologists like Professor Abibe Gatan are doing just incredibly vital work. These folks are literally the frontline defenders and documenters of Ethiopia's ecological wealth. And that leaves us with one final, pretty thrilling thought. We've defined what life is, we've mapped out the five kingdoms, and we've explored the unbelievably rich biodiversity right around us. But the truth? There are still millions of species on this planet just waiting to be discovered, identified, and classified. Taxonomy isn't history, it's an ongoing, active adventure. So, if you decide to step into the world of biology and become part of the next generation of taxonomists, what undiscovered species might they end up naming after you? Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and whatever you do, keep exploring the living world.